Hola community, welcome to BlenderToday Live. We are here gonna cover today what's happening in Blender 4.5 the last month or the last few weeks, because in the 4th of June, Blender 4.5 goes beta, so Blender 5.0 goes alpha. We have decided on some splashes already. They're being worked on because we have two new splashes. We have the splash for 4.5 and then we have the splash for the development version of 5.0. As it happens usually on 3.0, 4.0, and every 2 years we change it. So there are a few things to talk about today. New changes, and this episode of today is dedicated to the memory of a member of the community, a very important member of the community from China. It's Leon Xiong. Let me share the screen here because the Blender community, the Blender China community, has made a very nice announcement article highlighting all the work that Leon has done. Is one of the pioneers of the Blender China community and worked on translations, testing patches, translated some books and some manual, and like so much at work. So I want to appreciate all the work that Leon has done. And there is this page where you can also leave your memories. We met actually when I was visiting in Beijing not that long ago. I have only good memories, and even with the Blender, the Caminandes USB card. And there is also a link where you can help the family if you want, Alipay link. But yeah, I just wanted to remember Leon with a smile and dedicate this Blender Today and everything that is new here in Blender and 4.5 and 5.0 and beyond. So thank you. In other news, we have Summer of Code. The Google Summer of Code has been announced a while back, but the projects have been announced. Every time we announce Google Summer of Code projects, some people get too excited. Over the years, I learned to get less and less excited because not every project happens. Although there are really good reasons to actually be excited about this, because sometimes we have students that or not students, because like people doing the Summer of Code which end up becoming Blender employees. Like Sergey is one of the leading the head of development of Blender, and he showed up in one of the Summer of Code projects. So yes, it is a reason to get excited. The ideas, the projects, they're listed here. Geometry Nodes has only one with regression testing. Modeling, there is one for improving edit mesh mirror. Sculpt and Paint, performance improvements, always welcome. And the VFX and video module is the one that has the most. Hardware accelerated video encoding and decoding, also a very popular request. Then HDR support for video, VSE Open Timeline IO, also requested since forever. Pitch corrections for sound playback in the sequencer, animation retiming, keyframe preview, also both in the sequencer. For the Compositor, there is implement a few new nodes, UI improvements, regression testing, performance testing in the Compositor, and finally some Flamenco, the render farm, the render management software by Blender, which if you don't know, you can go to flamenco.blender.org and learn more. It's open source, and it's what the team here uses for handling all these rendering fun, like a render wrangler. All right, so let me share the link. First, I'm gonna share the link so where you can help and well, you can get to know a bit more about Leon, what I mentioned before, from the Blender China community. Then the project's ideas I would like to share as well, because then you can read more, because I did go really fast on it. And the last announcement I want to do before going into the features is that the Blender conference is happening. So just a reminder, you can get tickets. You can buy the tickets. How many are there? Can I check without? Yes, actually I can check. Let me see how many are sold. All right, around more than 400 out of 700 tickets sold. So it's over half, well over half. So just saying. And also if you're gonna give a presentation, or if you want to show your short film at the Susanna Awards, you can always add your submit yours here. Okay, that being said, let's see what is new in Blender as of today. Let's see. How's everyone doing? We're gonna start with animation. There's a bunch of new. Actually, if you go to BlenderCommunity, you can follow the BlenderToday. The link is in the description. You can actually see everything that I'm gonna mention, and what I'm gonna talk about is in highlighted with the little diamond. But every change, all 500 commits are here in that list that we're gonna see. So let's see what is here first. Bone collection UI changes. These are improvements. Well, so the episode of today, let me go again. The episode of today is called Quality of Life. I think it's all over the place. There was one feature in particular for render templates, variables, that is very special. That's more than quality of life. But there are others that are quality of life that are mainly on the node editor. So that's the name of the show today. This one in particular, for example, is the bone collection UI changes that makes the UI a bit more consistent, because sometimes it happens that you have operators that are showing in a mode, like an object mode, when they're not, they don't, they can't be selected in object mode, right? Like a bone collection. Or if you have something pinned, the buttons are wrongly grayed out, or sometimes they are grayed out when they shouldn't. Like in this case, you can select and deselect when a armature is pinned or when a object is pinned. The other changes, also quality of life. Now, when you make a new action slot, it would name it with the name of the last used slot. So nice, as in not everything is called with a default slot name. Speaking of slots, they now show in the outliner, so you can see how many slots you have and how do they belong to each other. They don't have any kind of highlighting. I think there was a pull request, or someone mentioned I need to go check my notifications. I've been very busy with a survey. Yes, remember that thing that happened before the Blender conference? Well, that is it's happening. Actually, we've been working on it for the last couple of weeks, and it's soon coming out. We just need like a 4 charts more, and we're gonna publish it. Okay, next. That is really fun to see already, all the answers. And it takes time also, because it's not just one answer after like 50 questions, 50 answers. There is a bit more analysis to it, so to make it more fun to see, like, oh, let's see. So which topics are people more excited about, and which one do the people who donate want more compared to not, or things like that. Pretty fun. Next, the bone, again, quality of life. The bone eyedropper, the one that lets you pick bones, was being grayed out when it shouldn't, or basically not grayed out actually when it should. So okay, you get the idea. Is the eyedropper icon was showing like you could use it, but it was you can't. Let's see. Bunch of changes. Outer space, yeah, bunch of audio changes, which there is one fix in particular in the sound section, but this is the library, which is called audio space. The outer space, the moment I realized that it's not outer space but out of, like, anyway. This is a library that Blender uses for handling sound and playback and all that, and has a bunch of fixes. So if you had issues with that, especially on Linux, because I see that there is a few Pulse Audio fixes. Then there is one in particular, it's called Cork. Cork the Pulse Audio. What is corking? Stream start corked. What, can someone tell me what is corking in the... lingo of sound stuff. So Blender line, blend loader, building, build stuff, glFS. If you compile Blender, you may have noticed that now it takes a lot longer for the first time because all the tests have been moved from its own submodule, Git submodule, into the main repo. So just the one time is going to take long, but then should be okay. So many cleanups as well. The ones that interest me the most and the UI change cleanups, basically because the code itself in the UI under the hood in C++, it should be closer to what you do in Python. So there is less of a separation there, which is always welcome. Also, Adas split all the conversions, the versioning code for all 4.0, 1, 2, and 3, and 5, because the 4.5 has so much conversion code for the Compositor, especially because all nodes have been converted and they have so many new options and they have to be converted on the fly, which happens to be the section that we're gonna talk about now. Let's highlight this one, Compositor. There are a bunch of changes. First, remember last week we mentioned a bunch of nodes that had their options turned into inputs. So, well, there's no picture, unfortunately, because it's basically box mask. But let's see it. Let's look at it. We have time. Compositor. No, this is box mask. So here, you may remember that you had a bunch of options that were not, accessible. You could change some, but not now. Everything is an input, and this behavior, this principle has been applied to the box mask, ellipse mask, sunbeams, directional blur, and bilateral blur. Nice. Directional. Can I even change the... Oh, yeah. Now there is even a sub panel for the amount, the direction. You can tweak the direction with another... Nice. With an input, the image center. So basically everything is an input. Nice. So cool. Well, with more inputs come more responsibility and more customization. So some options are redundant, so they have been removed. The variable size blur, for example, has been removed because you can just pass. It's always variable size. You can just pass something to the input, to the size input. So yeah, doesn't make any sense. Then the focus also has some options that were no longer used. Use alpha options from the compositor and the viewer node also. They're not really needed anymore. Pre-multiplication also. There are some nodes. The brightness and alpha over had an option for pre-multiplication. And there you can actually do that pretty easily. You don't always need that option, and when you need it, you can add a alpha, like the nodes to convert the alpha specifically for that part. So yeah, it adds a few more nodes, but it simplifies internally how it is handled, and this will be all done automatically. It is, I don't think it's mentioned here, pre-multiplication, but let's see if this works. So yes, so this is a tip. Basically, this patch removes the pre-multiplied option for the alpha over node, right? The reasoning is, so this is the reasoning for removing it. There is no mention about conversion. What happens to my old files, to my files? Well, how can you find out? You go to files changed. Well, first the developer maybe should have mentioned like, hey, this will be taken care of. But also you can just go to files changed, and then in the file that says versioning, if it's in versioning, if there's something that is being happening, that when you load an old file, it's been versioned to match the new node. So basically in this case, it is adding some nodes, the primul one, the convert pre-multiplication. So it is doing all this math for you. Not math, but handling for you, the conversion for you. And that happens with many nodes. For example, the alpha over options are now inputs. This is one of the reasons why the previous option was removed. The bokeh blur has a option that is called max blur that also has been removed, and there is some conversion. No, in this case there is no conversion actually, because it is difficult to version this change because the size is relative to the image size, while max blur is in pixels. So if you use that option, which usually is set very high, so you don't need to tweak it, but yeah, just keep in mind that. The bokeh blur also, the node also had many of these options turned into inputs. Many or all of them? Let's see. All of them. Image, bokeh, these were already there. Size also. Extend bounds is a boolean, and then bounding also. Bounding box. Neat. The tooltip of this could include the name of the label, right? Because sometimes you don't get to read. Like it could say bounding box, and this actually should be capital bounding box. This is illegal. Look at that, lowercase in Blender. Yeah, usually this label should be uppercase. And the tooltip also, it shouldn't show the dot at the end of the float. There is a patch for that, I think. But also it could show the label name. We have some changes in tooltips today. What else? Some options have been removed. And the gamma from blur and the focus nodes have also been removed. And they've been added some versioning. All right, why was it removed? Well, it was added when the compositor wasn't working on a strictly linear workflow. So now you don't need this anymore. And it is easy to insert the gamma node around the node. So this has been done with versioning. Let's move on. What else has happened in the curves section? So curves support nodes inside. There's no way to actually make nodes in Blender yet, but you can import them from other places, from, for example, from Rhino. So this change, this example, the feature itself is separate. As an option to separate to the split operator to separate by custom nodes. So in this case, for example, you select parts of your geometry. These are different. So you see this is just the top. This is actually a bit of the curve as well. And in this case, it's the entire circle here. When you split it, now as you can see, it didn't keep these areas, which there is hard to tell, but yeah, there is a slot. Sorry, yes, wrong chat. Sony. I know. Sorry about that. I should wear this actually, but it's too hot to listen to. Okay. Yes, I use this thing. It's called Soundboard, and I can't set colors if you don't pay. In Linux, I had one that was amazing. Linux Show Player, something like that. But what if? Yeah, sorry about that. Or did I do it on purpose for, to get engagement on the chat? Next. A speed up in the depth graph. Yes. It's a little speed up. Well, not so little actually. So by skipping some checking when building collection relations, a simple test with 60,000 objects became 1.86 times faster. So from 239 to 1.29 seconds. Not bad. Super nice. All right, let's switch. Let's switch topic and imagine the pipe. This is tiny, but you may maybe you have noticed, sorry, that the checkerboard had a different size sometimes in the sequencer than in the 3D viewport. Yeah, this was missing apparently a simple check for pixel size. So this now should be stable. The checkerboard should be stable. I wish the people would add screenshots. Not really that hard. You know what's hard? To be as cool as Adas. So Adas, let's do the proper pipe. There you go. The speed up, New Importer is the name of this What is the new importer? It's the C++ one, the one that is already faster for some. Or was it the exporter? No, wait, this is the importer. It makes the import about 2 to 5 times faster. Do most of the work in creating meshes in parallel, so multi-thread, and faster creation of transform F curves using the same machinery as another part. The add function for batch creation of many F curves for USD. Neat. Amazing, amazing. What else? Let's switch into FFmpeg. So FFmpeg can now output FFV1 format in 10, 12, and 16 bits depth. Not bad to render videos in high precision. What else? Gray 8. When rendering a black and white with QuickTime, I'm gonna say Qtl, like Squirtle, QTRLE, and PNG. Nice. So good to see changes and improvements. So this is the 10 to 12 bit commit by Martin Vignali, and this applies to 10, 12, and the 16 bit separate one. Wow. Fixes. So many fixes. Some of them are not even reported, and some of them are. So glTF, seen some USD. By the way, today, so the last episode, remember, was called Vulkan. Like the big thing is ready, it's here. So this has brought in some bug reports, some feedback. But today I ran into Jorun in the kitchen here at the studio, and he mentioned I need more bugs. There is only like one left open or something like that, but either Vulkan is working great or people are not reporting enough. In 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, we are gonna move to beta. Hopefully more people will test it then, but please test Vulkan or go on social media and says, hey, how's Vulkan running for you? I'm better, worse, and get the voice out there. If you make YouTube videos, if you are a content creator or like post on some social media, maybe help and extend your voice for people to test Vulkan, because not enough people are testing it. Even though we reach like 20,000 views on each one of these videos, still not enough. Or just maybe the implementation is just too good. Maybe Jorun is just so good. I have no doubt, but I know computers can be nasty, drivers and all that. Okay, maybe there's just no bug. Yes, maybe it is. Let's see. So how do you change to Vulkan? Go to System. I cannot show you here because I'm on a Mac currently, but if you're on Linux or on Windows, you should go to Preferences, System. All right, so many bug fixes. GPU as well, format. Okay, now it gets interesting. Let's talk about geometry. Not geometry now, just geometry in general, because initial replacement of custom data with attribute storage. Doesn't sound like much, right? Like, what is that? It's under the hood? Yes, it is really, really under the hood. But this is huge. This is a change to pull request by Hans that he's been working on for so long, like this 3 months ago. And then you scroll and you see the amount of work. And then 2 months. And then last month, if you look at the files that have changed, there is 1,700 lines added, 30 removed. So it's a huge commit. What is happening? Well, the attribute system in Blender, the one you use for geometry nodes, well, it's like built on top of the existing Blender mesh data, right? But also Blender has its own custom data, which been carrying over for many years, and it's used for different parts of Blender. So there was the attribute and then custom data. The attribute system, it's a lot newer, a lot more optimized. It's or it could be optimized even more. Any optimization that happens there could propagate to everywhere in Blender. So the fact that custom data in Blender has been ported over to attribute storage it's pretty huge. So at the moment, I think the first step will be to use it for point clouds. I think that's the next step. But overall, this is huge. This is, well, you can tell by the size of the of the 26 files, 1,700 lines of code, and so much work. Just a matter of looking at the commits and the changes, and just like huge. And of course, people testing this as well. So thanks everyone. We should celebrate things like this, right? Big refactors, because they are not so visible at the moment, but in the future, when everything ties together. Let's see. Now let's actually switch to geometry nodes. There is show nodes timing for import nodes. Yep, when you're all the import nodes, the new import nodes that are added to Blender 4.5 LTS now have node timings. There is no picture, no anything, because it's like, if you look at the code, it's just it was maybe like an oversight that should be added before. But yeah, now you can time how long it takes to load. And if it takes too long, well, worry no more, because these imported files are now gonna be cached. Yeah, you don't have to, Blender used to recalculate everything on each evaluation. It will like reload if you have a bunch of files in, it will reload them every time that it gets evaluated. So that has been fixed by caching these files. So everything should be much faster. Magnitudes. Faster, right? Because it only gets loaded once. Then, speaking of VDV of nodes, there is a new node in town called import VDV. VDV is what most people use, like a file format that is industry standard for volumes. For like, if you use Embergen to create volumes, then you can import them into Blender using VDVs, and that already you can already do that. It's with the volume object. So add, and there's volume, and then import open VDV. But now there's also a node, the shape of a node. Super nice. What else? Okay, so here we start to see a bit of the quality of life improvements. Okay, now the first change is it's, well, quality of life. It is a bug fix, actually. There was the import nodes were showing an error when using relative paths, even though it supports it, actually. The error was wrong, so this is a fix. Okay, now improve muted behavior of switch nodes. This is also kind of a bug fix in disguise, because see how it was done at the beginning. So when you have a switch node and you mute it, Blender automatically picks up the first input and connects it to the output, and it kind of makes the background a bit transparent, so you can actually see the connection, which I really like. I think it's pretty smart of Blender to do that. But yeah, it wasn't very smart, because it wouldn't pick the right socket. Because here you don't want to choose the index as an output when you mute the switch. You don't want the Boolean switch on and off. You just want to pass what it would be false, because it's the same as muted, or what would be 0 in the index switch. All right, so this is how it looks at the moment. You have a switch node that is muted, and it will pass through properly. So that's why I think this is more a bug fix than a new feature. Super welcome, though. I mean, it means that you couldn't even mute a switch node. Were developers waiting for the Nintendo Switch 2 to show up? I am. I know I am. Why would they release a new console in summer? Why? Support menu type, because it's for kids, Pablo, and they're in holidays. Anyways, geometry node, support menu type in menu switch node. Yeah, so this is also another addition for the menu switch node, and you can actually support menu types. The next is related to Grease Pencil. Two big features. One, viewport option. There is a new viewport option to show the onion skins of the active object only, like a solo. But also the big feature here, and I think we happen to have the developer that made it here in the chat. By the way, I'm reading the chat as much as I can. But what I wanted to mention is that node tools, you know, that part of geometry nodes that you can make your own operators with, well, that is now supported by Grease Pencil. So you can make your own tools, your own operators based on nodes in Grease Pencil modes. They work on the object mode, edit mode, sculpt, and draw mode of geometry nodes object. So this is pretty big. Are people actually, well, I mean, it is pretty big. To me, it's huge. Regarding geometry nodes, I'm not really that much on social media, so I'm not on Twitter much or on Instagram. So I'm missing out maybe on what are people making with these things. Are they even using node tools at all? Did they become, because they are like a huge thing. You can make your own operators, modeling operators. So, and you can add them to a menu up here. So to me, in terms of like feature, it's huge. But are people actually using it? Because you can have the best feature in the world, but if people don't use it, it's like, right? So are people using them? Do you see people like selling tools, nodes, operators on Superhive or no? By the way, speaking of Superhive, the renaming of Blender Market happened. I didn't mention, but I wanted to congratulate the Blender Market / Superhive team for pulling off such a massive like it's undertaking to rename a project that has been running for so long. And this is awesome because recently like we always had trademark guidelines on Blender. If you go to blender.org/logo, there are there is always a mention, okay, how to use the Blender name, how to use the logo, and most people just want to use the logo. So we had to make a page about it and point people how to use it, how not to use it. But there is also the trademark, and Blender is a registered trademark, but we never actually had. We just expected people to use it in a good way, right? Not to abuse the system. But it's 2025, and I think it's about time that Blender has its own page. So nothing really has changed. You can use Blender as usual as always. But now there is a trademark policy page that actually points out to that we can link people when they say, hey, can I call my thing Blender whatever? And yes, you can, but there is a documentation now, and this is based on Mozilla and WordPress as a framework, because they've been running into this for way longer than Blender. But yeah, small thing. Nothing really has changed. We're just giving it a dedicated page on blender.org. So when people actually look for it, especially lawyers, when look for them, they know that they can use Blender name, but with limits. Okay. Rebranding. No, there's no rebranding at all. Not even the rules have changed at all. It's just adding a oh no, maybe it's Superhive. Yes, Superhive, not Blender Market. All right. Where were we? Node tools. Yes. Are there any node tools that come built in Blender now? No, not yet. Should there be any node tools that come built in Blender? Let's see what else has changed in the modeling section. Well, modeling, this is more like rigging, right? Because when else do you add? No, not always. Not just vertex weights. You can assign vertex weight, right? There is now a button, an option that is called auto normalize that allows you to normalize for example, when we have this kind of groups, for example, if a selected vertex has 3 groups, which is 0, 2, 0, 2, and 0, 6, right? One that is higher than the rest. The user selects group 3 and then checks the auto normalize checkbox. Then the weight that when you set the weight to 0.8 and assign, the new weights will be 0.1, 0.1, 0.8. So it is normalized for all the other groups, which is super nice, because it means that the total will be 1.0 instead of 0.2, 0.2, 0.6. So 1.0, it will be 0.8, and all the other ones will be 0.1. Nice. So it's not technically rigging, it's not technically modeling. Vertex weights. Let's see. What else? Okay, let's talk now about nodes. Send nodes. These nodes, check. I don't know if he had a long list somewhere, like written down some of the tweaks he wanted to make at some point, or he was just inspired, because Jack has been on a roll for adding quality of life improvements, like one after the other. Is like, okay, one, support searching for dynamic node labels. When you press Ctrl F to search, Blender was only searching for the node names or the labels, the one that you actually type yourself, but it wasn't checking for the dynamic ones. For example, when you add a math node, it's not called math, it's called add multiply, because the label is dynamic based on the mode that is in. So now Blender, when you search Command F, now it's actually gonna find those. So nice. The viewer node label will be taken into account, so in the context path. So if you have named your viewer nodes, they will show the actual one. So it should not say just viewer node, but the one that you have selected. Also, tiny quality of life, that helps so much. Okay, this one is huge, so pay attention. Have you ever wanted to search for add multiply modulo? Yes, now you can. You can actually search for specific math operations in the add menu. Yeah. Yes, many people were waiting for this one. You can now search subtract, multiply, add, and this was only supported for the link drag, the feature that allows you to, like, when you link, like here you could do like math, but well, in the socket that makes sense, right? But now you can actually search for it. So let's see, search for add, boom, add node, search for multiply. Nice, awesome, oh, amazing. Like, this is just worth an entire LTS. What else? UI wise, the menus that you specify in the nodes, like, well, now only geometry nodes, the menus now support expanded. You can actually expand them, so they don't have to be always on a drop down, but they can be on an expanded enum, like a radio button, basically. So cool. Like, now you can start customizing the UI. A menu collapse and a menu expanded. Also, have you ever tried to add a new node group? Like just add a node group. There's no way, because you have to always group something. So then, I mean, you get used to it, right? But like, for example, here, if I want to add a new node group, I can't. I need to add whatever I want inside of the node and then make a node group. Well, now there is an option actually in the group panel. There is a new group node. Hey, and now you can, I mean, it could actually go in, right? Why would you, it should actually go inside, because why would you create a new node group without inputs, without outputs, without going into it? So I would actually prefer to go in, but they probably thought about it, and maybe they have a good reason not to. What do you think? Please let me know. You go in or not? Harry Blends. Hi, Harry. What do you think when you create a new node group? You should go inside, or just like appreciate the node before going in? Adding a new node group around a reroute is my favorite life hack. Nice one, Harry. Okay, let's continue, because Jack has been on a roll, really. now you can not only search for math nodes, but also color blend nodes. In geometry nodes, the compositor and shader nodes, you can actually now search for things like, well, I need to stop saying add and multiply because that also applies, but okay, overlay. Overlay is a color burn even. That's, oh my gosh. This is saving the planet because you are going to be faster. Your computer is going to be less time on. I don't know. But this should reduce the amount of CO2 in the planet. I don't know if this is measurable, but anyway, I like to think it is. Anything that makes Blender faster and your time faster. Let's see. Show, okay, this is eye candy as well. Show link errors directly on the link itself. So instead of being in the node, like instead of having the node that has invalid link, now let me show it to you actually live. And for that we can, it works on every editor. This is not just the geometry nodes, or it's just the node editor. Anytime you have a like an error on a link, for example, if I try to connect a shader to a color, I will see an error. Hey, look at that. The error is actually in the wire itself. And you can leave the mouse over and you will see the tooltip that tells you why. And oh, there is a little glitch there. There is like some space that gets removed after. Interesting. Anyway, no, we're not here to see glitches. We are here to see cool stuff, such as what happens if this is out of the way, out of the screen, and I already can bet that Harry Blend's gonna make an amazing animation or a pun or a joke around this. Look at this, look at this. Whoop. Hey, someone wants to be in the picture. Doesn't want to leave, and then it goes away. So basically this sticks to the wire so you can actually see what is going on without losing it out of sight. So cool. I don't know what happens if I just add a bunch. Let's see. Just have... I guess we'll find out. So there you go. They're gonna like going down on a slide. Anyways, it's enough fun here. Let's see. What else? Draw frame outline over zone backgrounds. Have you ever noticed how the zone backgrounds were drawing on top of the frame outline? And yeah, that shouldn't be the case. When you have something like a frame selected, the outline should take precedence, should be on top of it. So always good to see. Speaking of frames, two more amazing features. One, the default color of the frames it's black. What happens when you have a frame inside of another frame which you haven't changed the color? Well, Blender will now be smart, and instead of showing you like black, 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 and then you can't see where you are, Blender will alternate the color. Well, it's the same color, so you can theme it to whatever you want, but it will be slightly darker and lighter. So like, I think 20% or less lighter and then darker, so alternating with inside and out, so you can actually tell what's going on. That's so nice, so nice. What else? Also for frames, when you drag something, when you drag an object on top of a frame, the frame will get highlighted, will get the outline highlighted, so you actually know that what's going to happen before. And this is awesome. Because you couldn't tell other than just dropping the node and hoping for it to be connected. Now you can. Now, super nice. It's the small things, you know. It's like so much polish. That's why I think Jack either had a list and then or just started working on it. Because another for frames, the label position, how annoying it was that the label position, first it didn't have any padding and it was positioned weirdly, and especially when you have simulation nodes, they wouldn't be taken into account to move the title up, but now they do. Look, old in the top, new at the bottom. The label is always visible with nice even padding on the top and the bottom. This will This will improve the, the, when you are obsessed with something, like, how do you call it? The obsessive compulsive TOC, we call it in Spanish. When you're obsessed with one thing. All right, this should be better. I hope it also accounts for the timings. That's a good question. That's a good question. Is there a mention maybe here? Timings? I guess it will be difficult to manage that kind of where the timing overlays. Yes, I'm aware. I'm looking into this issue separately. Look at that. It is being looked into. I didn't even have to try it myself. Yes, Jack is aware. Awesome. Let's leave it a heart. Jack is such an amazing. We're so lucky to have people like Jack around. The next change, support search wait in menu for searchable enum. So now the menu can actually support wait. The wait is what makes it show up higher up or lower in the search. So always welcome. Show a warning when a group output is unused. There are very rare use cases for having multiple grouped output nodes. However, it's something that's been supported for a long time, and removing it may be a regression for some. In practice, it's usually a mistake when someone has multiple group output nodes. However, it can happen, so dispatch as a simple warning group output nodes to help the user notice this case. Nice. It's a warning, it's not an error, but good to have. Oh, this one is also super nice. It was actually added by the community, Endor-H. Allow dragging group sockets from the panel into the nodes editor. So the sidebar where you see all these sockets, now you can simply just, okay, it's using a weird let's see here, theme, so it looks weird, but basically let me show it to you because it's easier that way. So let's say I have geometry nodes and I have a bunch of sockets here, right? I have an output socket for material. Well, now you should be able to drag, oh wait, for inputs, you should be able to drag a socket type and then drag group inputs. And then does it work for outputs? No, for inputs. So let's see, input type matrix, and then it will make this one with the name, of course, that it's it. So drag and drop. So cool. Geometry 2, socket, so much easier. I guess we're gonna need a join link as well, like when you join two objects but join this group input into one. Would that be useful? What do you think? A group or join, command J, what is it in objects? Is, yeah, command J for join. What else? Allow, no, that's it. I think we went through all of them. Not too bad. I think there is even more, but in another section. Let's move on. Okay, we need to talk about physics. We rarely see any news in physics. The last time we heard about physics was probably when MantaFlow was added and the previous system was removed, and then that was it. That was a long time ago. Apparently, Bartosz Koziorek has improved liquid simulation performance. So more various computations out of a loop. This can improve performance up to 125 and 1.5 times depending on the scene. That's amazing. So I didn't even know until I read these changes and then all these commits that there were people actually interested in working on improving MantaFlow. So this is very, very, very welcome. Of course, I think the goal at some point is to move these solvers into geometry nodes somehow, but it's always welcome, especially optimization. So precision of 4D vector normalization functions has also been improved. It's more accurate now to avoid potential numerical stability. So more consistent simulations, and viscosity performance has been improved by 2.5%. I will take any percent. I would take 0.00001%, just knowing that there is Bartos looking after MantaFlow. Just anyone looking after MantaFlow is so nice. It's an abandoned section, part of Blender. It's one of those that it's there, but it's not abandoned. It's orphan, not abandoned, orphan. Until someone wants to adopt that area. Like NURBS. Who's working on NURBS? There is a few patches lately, but it's one of those areas that is orphan and waiting for a someone to pick it up. Point clouds. Move random default primitive creation to on operator. So I think there is in the Shift A menu, there should be now point cloud. I'm in object mode. Oh. Point cloud. What is in? Oh, maybe there's an option for random. Or maybe I just don't have this. Previously, all the new point clouds created in the main database would have the random 400 points. Now that's only the point cloud created from the add menu. Okay. So the actual add, there is an operator for adding a point cloud, and there is one for adding a random one, which is the one that you see in here. I thought there would be two options, but no, this is it. And we can maybe confirm this. Yes, by looking at the operator name, which is point cloud random add. Okay, next. Bunch of refactors. And finally, we arrive at the, not bad, Sculpt. Yep, there is a few changes, performance and brushes. So convert all the scraped, fill, and flatten brushes to plain brush. This was the case for essential brushes, but now it's done programmatically and remove the old code. The VVH lift limit has been adapted, which should make performance improvements. The FPS, for example, depending on the ratio of brush to the mesh size, depends. Now it's about 1.1 and 1.5 times faster. The performance of the brush evaluation also about 1.2 to 2.9 times faster almost. 131 times slower build times for VVH, but I'll take that. I prefer the things take time to load once and then are fast to iterate over. Nice. Oh, there is even videos comparisons. So with some grid with 10 million vertices. This is 4.2. So it's not even showing, or it is. Okay, it's not too bad. Main, wow, main was super slow. And now this should be faster. Yeah, instant, basically, real time. I think the shading of the video should have been, of the workbench should have changed. Should have been adjusted to see it more clearly. But you can look at this in the link to BlenderToday, Blender Community. Use bug test to select VVH nodes affected, which should make it between 50 and 70%. Okay. Oh, the test was about this time. So actually with this box selection, box testing should be better performance and reduce memory usage. And the capability, okay, this is just the Dyntopo panel apparently was showing some options when it when they didn't work. So now they are grayed out properly. I think there is like better checking for which options are available. Nice. Okay, let's talk about the video sequence editor. One feature removal. Did you ever used, or maybe you are the one person that was actively using, okay, so have you ever used the I don't want this, I want Oh, I shouldn't have saved over this file. Okay. In the video sequence editor, you have the preview and then you have the sequencer, right? So there was an option that it was called, how was it? Backdrop, and would allow you to we can actually open Blender 4.4 actually, and in the demo sequencer I can show you. Okay, well, you couldn't see, but basically when an image is here, there you go. So this is my preview, and there was an option that not many people were aware that is called preview as a backdrop. So you could see this in the backdrop, and there were so many issues with this. So basically, semi-transparent nodes were invisible. This was you couldn't change the size of this. It was just buggy, and no one really reported issues. It was a hack added during Cosmos Laundromat, and no one ever used it as far as I know. So there was a new feature that was gonna be added to Blender, but it couldn't be added if the backdrop it was incompatible with it. And this new feature is HDR support in the sequencer preview. Nice. I don't have a way to show you this. This video is not HDR, this live stream is not HDR, and I don't have an HDR screen either, so I have no way to show you. But imagine the colors in the preview like coming at you, and being able to actually tweak HDR content in Blender. So yes, nice. Can't really demo, but I hope it works. Let's see. Shader. There is a new feature in the shader section. It's a new shader called volume coefficients, and apparently looks like this and allows you to specify more precisely the coefficients for absorption, scatter, and emission. So more flexibility. What else? Shape keys. Let's talk about shape keys. There's one feature in shape keys, but we already had a feature last week. Remember, there is now a new operator to update the shape keys from selected objects, which is something you couldn't do before. So you could add shape keys from selected objects into a new shape, but you couldn't update those. So super handy. This operator is very similar to the join as shapes operator, which joins them, but it actually makes a new one, like a new from mix, but from the selected objects into the new one. This one updates or adds a shape. No, the join as shapes will make new shapes, but the new one will actually update the existing ones. The new operator is called update from objects in the user interface. And this what is it? Doesn't mention the PR itself, but there was some discussion here, remember? I think I was part of this. Operator names. Yes, I was part of this. There was some discussion about renaming this, but we're not going to do that now because it doesn't make sense. But yeah, it's the join as shapes. It's always a bit cryptic to me. Let's see. Sound. Yep, there are a few changes. One of them is make Blender control when we open and close sound devices. This is actually a bug fix. I don't know if you have ever noticed, but it could happen that on Windows and on Mac and on certain backends on Linux, it could happen that Blender will appear to be playing audio. Like some operating systems, they show you like, okay, this app is sending audio signal, and Blender wouldn't, even when Blender wouldn't do it. So without a sound strip on the sequencer or playing back anything with sound. So that should be fixed now. All right, let's talk about, we're almost done. We only need to talk about okay, no, wait. And before, this kind of not AI, UI. But before that, there is actually one feature that is not technically UI, but it's in the core. So one of the features that people have been requested the most on right-click select, like if you go to right-click select, there is variables. There is like using variables for rendering. What was it? Render output. How would I? Anyway, I don't want to bore you while I look for it, but trust me, people have been requesting this for so long, and this is not the ultimate version of it. It's the initial implementation, super basic, what is usually called templating support. So being able to use variables for things such as render output paths. So at the moment, if you have 20 files, or if you have 10 scenes, and well, no, I actually wanted. At the moment, maybe let's do the option with files. So if you have a bunch of files and then you have, you want to change the I don't know, the render output path, and these files have different names, right? And you want to use the file name maybe as an output at the directory. So each directory has its own, it's linked somehow to the same name of the file name of that blend file. The way of doing it was with scripting, but now you can actually use a variable. So there are 3 variables that are supported at the moment. Let me look for the actual, I may have a link to the documentation, because it was actually documented in here. This documentation is not published yet. It's in the in a repository, but this is what the docs will be basically. So in the render output, you can now write things such as blend name, and it will get the blend names like dance in this case, and then we'll make an image for that. Super nice. There can also have FPS, so the frames per second of the current scene, what the community says it would be useful, and also resolution X and resolution Y. This also, if you want to, for example, render dance FPS, you can even specify the format of the FPS. What is the format? Okay, interesting. Format is in integers for 3 digits, 0.2 digits. Okay, I guess that's a common use case. Yeah, I guess if you export in multiple versions. I thought we all agreed to do 24 frames per second now in the digital age. Not the case yet. Okay. There are ways to escape the sequence, of course, by using double brackets. And there is some error handling even if this is like wrong. Like if you have one curly bracket open and then you didn't close it, then it will show an error. But yeah, this should open the door for more variables in the future, and just basically give you, like, the community maybe could even come in and add all the remaining ones. For example, scene name, active scene, active camera name. What else would you do? Active marker? No? Maybe, right? Because there's always like a marker that is the current one. Or like the last one from the previous. Could be. Anyways, the sky is the limit. So community, go look at this commit and maybe see how it's done, hear the changes, and maybe try adding more. I think this was just like a first implementation. We need more. We want more. The community wants more. Go to right click, select, look for the things that people are requesting. All right, now let's actually talk about you and I. User interface. in paint modes, don't override model cursor with the paint cursor. Okay, so this is more like a fix. In all the paint and sculpt modes, it was practically impossible for model operators to set a model cursor because the cursor was immediately overwritten by the paint cursor. Dispatch, the paint cursor function checks for the model cursor first. Nice. Is there a check? Example of an add-on setting a cursor in grease pencil draw mode. Now the add-on can actually work. The next one, simplify volumetric data settings for fluids. So this is advanced settings, which doesn't describe much, and there are duplicated volumes, labels are too long, so okay, so all the wrong things. And this should be the new one. I wasn't even aware of this change. Who from the UI team? Okay, Harley has reviewed this. Any change, I would take anything really. Just someone looking at the at Mantaflow. Yes. Enum tooltip item order. This is a very subtle change, but it makes a difference. Look at this. What's wrong with this? This is a tooltip for the editor type. What you could see, the editor type. So you see editor type, current editor type for this area. So all the description, and then you see which one is active. And then you see a definition of the active viewport, in this case 3D viewport, the active editor. It's a bit hard to read, right? Because what you want to see quickly, it's what is highlighted here. So now this is how it looks. There is a description of the actual property, and then boom, the option, and then the description of the property, and then finally the definition of the description of the active item selected. Then add missing periods to override. Okay, this is just adding the missing periods at the end of some labels, but a welcome change. So thank you, Jordan. Everything adds. Oh wow, a change from me. Pablo Vazquez has heard from Hjalti that Hjalti is an animator, director, rigger, layout artist here at the studio that has a very particular key map setup. So it has so many keys changed that sometimes when Blender deprecates one operator, one change, there was no way to know, and now there is. So before, for example, when you assign something to none or like something broke, there was no way to tell at a glance. But now there is. Actually, now when something is unassigned, it will say unassigned. It's in red. Also, you can actually see it. So now it's a bit more. It checks basically if it exists or not, and then highlights in red. I wish I would have enough brain and skills to be able to propagate somehow this change up, because I would like to have like a warning at this level. So red, 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 just to see that something is wrong, because otherwise there's no way to know. If you have everything collapsed, there is no way to know, and Blender by default collapses everything. So yeah, although I guess you would find out because you have the restore button, so you know that something has been changed here, and if it's red. But yeah, you have to dig down. So maybe someone with a bit more wrinkles on its brain can help. This is what I did, and it's all Python, by the way. It's all Python. So maybe you can look at my code and see if there is any way to make it better. All right, you know what's better, what's best, when Blender has this hidden. I know, no, it's not great when Blender has hidden features, but when it's a hidden feature, but it's so well implemented that you learn it once and it works everywhere in Blender. Well, for example, you know the shortcut dot, now the dot in the numpad to center, to make something active, to go to that object, to that anything really, because it works everywhere, in the outliner, in everywhere. Well, this now also works in the sidebar tabs. So if you happen to have a tab, like if you have to have a lot of tabs and you don't know which one is active, so you can't see, you can press the dot with the mouse over the tab section. And this is why I say that it's so hidden. But it's one of those things that I love about Blender, that it's very Blender. You just try, you move the mouse over, maybe dot, and hey, actually works. So yeah, hidden feature, but very Blender-like. And you know, here in this show, we like Blender to work well with Blender. To Grease Pencil to work well with, you know, cycles, and Eevee work with cycles and Grease Pencil and back and forth, and render passes and import and export, everything. It's in the same environment working together. You know what else works? No, I was trying to come up with a segue. You know what else works together? When Sean adds features from, well, a developer from, usually from the Sculpt module, also works with assets, and now added this UI improvement that is very subtle, but it helps. So actually this is related to a right-click select change. So I don't have the actual pull request because it's so, well, the pull request showed a screenshot. So basically, when you have local and essential assets, there was no way to know. There was no way to know which one was local and which one was an essential library. So I can actually show you maybe from the asset browser. If I leave, yes. So if I leave the mouse over in the tooltip now says asset library essentials or local. Depends on the type of assets that you have. So if I have a new asset, it will say the library where it's coming from. In this case, it says a blend file. No, actually, this should be grayed out because it's a value. Yeah. Anyways, things to improve. What I mean is the bottom two lines should be grayed out, I think. So they look consistent with the name of the library of the asset library. Anyways, next, more UI tweaks for the settings labels of the fluids. Then consistent file asset drag size, the size of preview images. Yeah, this was a bug. Drag and dropping. Sometimes I would get a huge preview when drag and dropping from the assets into Blender. Yes, but now it's consistent. Thank you, Harley. The rip option in the UV was missing. Actually, there was no way to discover it. It wasn't in the menu. Wow, nice. Good to, the shortcut for this operator wasn't discoverable. Show this in the menu as done with the edit mesh rip. Oversight, completely lost it. I wonder if Blender for Artists had it and we didn't and forgot. They do a good job at trying to keep the menus clean and adding everything that's missing or removing duplicates. You know which new menu is which new operator is in a menu. So there's a new operator to remove all the materials, like a cleanup. This actually is a right-click select proposal. So it was a request proposal that somebody requested a way to delete materials, like all the materials from one object. So they made this, and then I mentioned, hey, it could be, you know, I think I mentioned that it could be a good third issue. Maybe someone could add it and could add it to the cleanup menu inside object. And Ethan something created a pull request, which is now added to Blender. And I think this was, now maybe this is one took a bit longer. No, because there was another feature that was requested on right-click select, and it actually was added to Blender in less than 12 hours. A new post on right-click select, upvoted, approved, reviewed, and committed to Blender in less than 12 hours. Nice. I wish everything would go that that fast, but this one made it in. So super nice. You basically have a new operator, go to object, clean up, and then remove all materials. Super nice. All right, a bunch of changes and improvements to the status bar keys. In this case, page up and down, and instead of being just a P, now it's PG for page, which is much more descriptive than P. Can be anything. Then the proportional size options, also they were super long. Now they're collapsed into one. So imagine this with PG. Event icons for trackpad gestures. Yep, they were, oh, nice. We have new icons. We'll prove this. All right. Single-handedly made the PR, made the gestures, made the new icons, added them, approved himself, committed himself. That's proactive. I like that. I like that. I don't know if I would have chosen these icons per se. I'll probably be a bit, but you know what? It doesn't matter that this has slightly different width than this, or like the corners are not rounded when everything in Blender is rounded, because it's done and it's there and it's out there, and then at some point we're gonna do a pass on it. But it's better than waiting for me to finish with a freaking survey or whatever other unrelated Blender thing that I have to do for my job, and my job is this, by the way, instead of doing design. Correct width for hyper status bar. For hyper, the hyper symbol in the status bar apparently didn't have the right width. Wow, yeah, it was pretty buggy. Hover increment and decrement for string and toggles. Nice. Do you know how you can control up and down on, for example, like color to change the value? Well, this now works for text and for these toggles. Next. Super nice. Another quality of life improvement. So control up and down. It's something, one of those features again that is hidden, but you would just try it to see if it works or not. Okay, next, let's see. Allow drag multiple files from Blender file browser. Yep, you can now drag multiple files. Is it a video here? There was a video, I think. Now you can drag multiple files from the file browser into Blender in this case, and it should work. Not just adding the main. Okay, now I think this is maybe just showing a bug. But yeah, allow it. It is possible. Next. Show grease pencil vertex groups in the outliner. Yep, you can, just like with meshes, you can have a grease pencil object, have vertex groups, and see them all in a list. Super nice. That's a bug fix. It should be backported. Anyway, quality of life improvement and also UI. Rename tooltip label to quick tooltip. Ah, yes, this is internal, I think. Because it is quick tooltip. There's two kinds of tooltips in Blender. One that is the quick one that shows immediately, so you just see, get a glance, and doesn't have the description, just the name of the tool. And then it loads the other, the one with the description, the shortcuts, and everything. What else? I think it's that kind of tooltip you can see in the in here. So the quick tooltip in this case is the name of the tab, and then if you leave the mouse over, you get a description and the Python and everything. I think there could be more of a gap. Because now it looks a bit bit too quick or too slow. It's like, yeah, maybe everything should be a quick tooltip, and then no, that would be even worse. No, never mind. I didn't say anything. Allow disabling ortho lines. Ah, this is the one. This feature took less than 12 hours from right-click select, post proposal idea to completion and be part of Blender forever, which is allow disabling orthographic access lines. So this feature actually didn't even have there was a post, I think, that had a picture. No, not even. So no picture, but just the access display. I think Harley made a picture. Yeah, here. When enabling the grid in orthographic view, you could toggle this access, but they wouldn't go away. You couldn't disable them. You could, like, they were not even grayed out. That's a bug, and now they work. So you can actually leave the grid on and no access, or the other way around, have the access or some access even and not grid. Does it make sense to have the Z axis? Yeah, I guess for other point of view, right? Like if you are in top right, yes, you want some. So you can now basically just go here and then enable. Oh, this is is it a regression? Well, it's something definitely different, because up until now, Blender would always show the axis on orthographic mode. So you would always see the Z axis, whereas Blender by default doesn't show the Z axis. Should Blender show the Z axis by default? Nah, it's too much. Because it's the one thing that is different. One of the many things that is different with other 3D software. But no, it's just too much in your face. Anyways, next, turn off the ability to drag properties navbar. This is also something that I posted some time ago, and there was a right-click select mentioned recently. I think there was I think also right-click select navigation bar. Or properties bar. I think they call it auto hide navigation bar. Somebody proposed to auto hide. Oof. I don't know how I feel about that. Would you use that? Please let me know. Like you mouse over. Well, this is the best theme to show it, but so you mouse over and then it will show up floating. You don't want it to. It should be floating. It shouldn't move the whole UI when you mouse over, and then you select and it goes away. Okay, I don't know. Would you? Really, is that small of a screen? So basically you have this. Now, when it's on the left side, it will be very annoying to have it coming in and out every time you go in and out. But when it's on the right side, maybe less annoying. And then you go here and then maybe. No. So people say no. Yeah, right? It's kind of weird. Personally, I wouldn't use it, says the duck. Someone would, nickname would. Let's see. Support detecting good width for search box. Another quality of life improvement by Jack that made it so the size of the search will actually resize as you type to allocate for the content. I don't know if it's as you type, but there is definitely space for this. If it fits, it sits. And what else? I'd hide to properties in the context menu. Add an item to hide the navbar to the context menu. Okay. It's just adding the option, but this should be, this is the same as dragging it before. All right, next, let's switch into Okay, this is small, but UVs. Support sticky modes when face sync selected is enabled, and support sticky modes when edge sync select is enabled. What does it mean? Well, this is in preparation for some improvements that are going to happen in UV sync that is being worked on. And another of the features that the community has been requesting for a long time, which is fixing once and for all these issues of selection with Blender UV. When you have UV sync, and it's just a bit stupid. You need to only use it for like 1 minute to realize how cumbersome it is. So there are improvements coming, and this is one of the first link to that. This is the previously the UV sync select in face mode or edge mode will isolate the UV selection, so dragging a face will disconnect it from the adjacent faces. Now the sticky mode is respected for face selection and edge selection. So nice. Let's switch topics to the video sequence editor. 2 changes. 1, show warning on the slip operator if there's not enough content to clamp. So when there is when you clamp, so basically when you have, for example, a video strip and the movie is this size, but your strip is this size, there's no more content, Blender will now tell you like, hey, there's not enough content to clamp if you have a clamp on. And also when some of the strips don't have it, because it can happen that you have some strips that can be clamped, but some of them can't. So now Blender will tell you quality of life improvement right there. And another one, which is actually a new feature, it's not a quality of life. It is a new feature. You know how in Blender 3D Viewport, you can press the shortcut Control dot to change the size. It's a model operator to move the origin, which is the same as doing options, enabling origin, and then basically turning it on and off. Okay, so command dot, control dot, yeah, command dot actually doesn't work. Control dot allows you to adjust and scale and everything. Basically every transform is applied to only the origin, and you need to come here and disable it. Well, this is now available in the video sequence editor for strips. So in the in this video, you can see how this arrow is pointing to the right. The origin is right in the center, but now there is an operator which has the same shortcut as in the 3D viewport, which allows you to adjust the pivot point while you're editing. And it's so nice because this is a transform, so you can actually scale the pivot point, rotate it, allows you to transform things much more easily. So nice. I don't know if it works with snapping yet, but let's see if I have something here I can actually use to demo it. And yes, so I have this strip that I want to adjust. I was testing something else here actually, so that's why the mess in my strips. So if I do control dot, I'm editing the pivot point. And let's see if I can do multiple. So I have all 3, and then I can do control dot, and I start changing, and it works with snapping. So nice. Actually, I'm snapping to the top. Wow, that's cool. And it works okay for where I have this on. That's actually pretty nice. Control dot, and then you can actually press S to scale and R to rotate, so you can rotate the pivot points of multiple strips at the same time. Can I trackball rotate? Yes, I can. Why would I need that? But yeah, you can press R twice to trackball rotate the origins of strips on a 2D editor, which is the sequence editor, but the trackball is in 3D. The sky is the limit. Anyway, that I think that we're almost done. There's some improvements in performance in the Workbench engine. You know what is a Workbench engine? You use it because it's what you see when you load Blender, the default view. This is the Workbench engine. It's a render engine that got a little improvement to load a bit faster. So they do some lazy subpasses initialization. So lazy means that it will load the shaders needed, but only when they are needed. I'll take my time, which means that Blender can start up faster because it only needs only loads what it needs at the moment, and then the other shaders are gonna be compiled when you're actually using Blender. So it went from 27 shaders at startup to 9. Yay, nice. And that's it. Let's cover a bit of the changes in glTF, but you can actually see them here. The format glTF, it's an add-on, but it's actually built in Blender. So it comes built Blender and now has improvements all over the place. The exporter ambient occlusion color can be used as a base color. You can export the viewport material, the cache sampler output, clamp normalized vertex color values. And there is a new option to import and use materials and images, and an option to import scenes as collections or as scenes. So now there's an option for that. Nice. So thank you, Julian, for the glTF improvements all this time. The only maintainer of the glTF importer exporter. All right, let's see if there is any questions. I think I covered everything that was in everything new in Blender as of today. Let's see. 9 comments. Let's go down here. And Sansul says, hey Pablo, will we ever get native ACES support in Blender? AGX might be better than ACES, but pretty much every other 3D SSE blah 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 supports in, makes it really cumbersome to use with Blender. There are tutorials out there how to implement, how to enable it yourself. I don't think I have an answer for this because I am not even aware where are the limitations at the moment. I think at some time ago they had to do with deprecating older color. I think it has something to do with, like, if you change that because they are based on names, that older ones wouldn't work. But I don't remember exactly. So sorry, I have not an answer for this. Vortex says, hey Pablo, I noticed the Blender merge store is back. However, there is unfortunately no UV checker socks. Do you know if they will ever return? Well, okay. We haven't announced this anywhere because it was a bit of an experiment. But the store.blender.org website, it's back. It's not the same one, but like the previous one, we would ship things from here, from the Netherlands. Anya and Anna would be somewhere in the south of the Netherlands with a warehouse, and they would ship, they would take the t-shirts and fold them, and there is even a Blender Heads episode about them on the Blender channel, on this channel. But that no longer, well, Anya retired, so she's not working on this anymore, and managing a store is actually, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. We don't have the facilities at the moment. So if you come to Blender, to the Blender HQ, you can buy stuff. But online, there was no way. So with Francesco, we thought about, okay, let's investigate how pretty much everyone does it. Not with a warehouse in the Netherlands, but online, on demand. If you need a mug, they make the mug and they ship you the mug. So you, like, the revenue for Blender is a lot less because, yeah, we don't have control over anything really other than the design. But on the other hand, it's so easy to just go and make a design and publish it. And at least have some way for people to contribute. So yeah, this is the current state of things. Some of the products were added, but we haven't promoted this anywhere because we wanted to know how does it even work? How does it look? People like it or not? I ordered this design. This is a design that Francesco made actually, and I quite like it actually. I have it here. I have it. It's a lighters shaders mug, and it has a hidden logo there. And I can actually show you full because I bought it myself. I actually had to pay for this. I have my Blender China character here, but yeah, I don't think this is, no, this is manual focus, so you're not gonna see it. So I have this mug now, and it has the Blender logo over here. Let's see. I actually quite like it. I don't know why it says sold out, because it's on demand. You can actually just make more. I don't know why it's sold out. Maybe because Francesco didn't like it enough. I don't mind it. Francesco says it's a bit out of, like, it's not so sharp, but I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I prefer to at least have something. Anyway, let's see. 44 euros for a cap. Yeah, that's the cap doesn't cost 44 euros to make. It's so Blender gets like it's like for you a way to make a donation and then get yeah, Blender gets a higher cut. That's why many of the stores of open source projects have like things that are expensive. Of course, you can buy a t-shirt in H&M or Primark for €1 made by also the quality this is a bit better, but this way you donate, so there is a markup in this. I don't remember how it is. I think for each product is different, but sometimes Blender will take 20, 30, 40%, depends. But yeah, but there are new t-shirts coming actually by the people from Kaft t-shirts. They make cool designs, and they are making a Blender. I don't know if I could announce it, but they are cool people. I'm just letting you know that there are things coming. But they are pretty cool. I think it's gonna happen. There's no way it's not gonna happen. They send the designs. They're super nice, and they're really good quality. I love their t-shirts. Let's see, Vortex. Hey Pablo, I noticed the Blender merch. Okay, yes, and there's one more. I just saw that bugged me about the UI for a long time. You know how you can't remove material slots on object while in edit mode? Why is it like that? It would be nice if the object was great rather than throwing an error when you clicked. Yeah, good point actually. This shouldn't be hard to do, and maybe someone from the community could yeah, this should be grayed out. Absolutely. Next, hello Pablo, have you considered splitting BlenderToday into 2 streams? BlenderToday for the news and Ask Blender for the questions, and maybe developer guests? I feel like putting the questions at the end might be unnecessarily stressful because it prolongs the already long stream, and maybe some questions don't get sufficient answers or may need to be clarified by the person asking the question. I thought about it, but I just thinking about having 2 streams. It's I'm already not doing enough Blender design stuff. I'm doing the survey. This, and then before that was a Blender conference ID, and before that was the release notes, and I think as soon as we're done with the survey, they have to go back to make the release notes pages, and it just never ends. So if I add yet another stream, I will have less and less time for actual Blender UI review, and yeah, it's a trade-off. I wish other people would help with this. But it's just me. Chrisidian says, hey Pablo, thanks for giving us all these weekly updates. Really become a big part of my week. Thank you. In the latest 2005 projects update, NPR was briefly mentioned, and it says that the design was chosen. I'm wondering if there is any more details on this. Does it mean that the NPR branch prototype that you could test out is going to be the way? Okay, maybe this is why we need a Q&A with developer guests or a way to get the questions before, so I can actually go and ask the NPR or people that know. I can bring maybe Dalai on, because I don't have an answer for this actually. Maybe you can ask in the chat, in the channel, right? In the EV and Viewport channel, or on Blender Coders. Hello Pablo, I haven't updated Blender since 3.5. The reason is because in geometry nodes mesh to volume in the newer versions is missing features, specifically the exterior bandwidth option. While I'm aware that the removal is intentional and for a reason, it's unfortunate because it's a massive feature to easily make grids from collections to voxel creators, and sadly the workarounds for it is more complex, less accurate, and much heavier to run. This is a feature that keeps me from updating to the newest ones, and it's a bummer, so I really wish it's reconsidered. Joy C. Well, also another voxel creator made a video talking about this.
All right, so in Blender 4.0, the mesh volume node lost some options. This is in 3.0.
What is the official answer to this? I remember when this was removed, but I don't remember the official answer. But there must be a good point, right? If there is another way of doing it internally, or it's coming, maybe. There must be. I recently there was on Twitter or somewhere, there was people not making fun, but mentioning how Blender removes features. And like, well, there is a new 4.4 Blender and version out, and then, oh, how many features were removed? And first, it's a fixed release. You don't remove features on fixed releases. But second, have there really been that many features removed? And this person mentioned the game engine. It's like, come on, that's 5-6 years old. But recently, this kind of counts as a recent removal. But those removals should be met with replacements. Something better, and not just a promise. Like, that's why I'm against removing the particle system, for example, until geometry nodes becomes good enough and easy enough to use, especially. Let's see. I've been trying to test rig nodes, says Num, but I'm going to be brutally honest. Rig nodes is not useful right now. But they're not even alpha. I was expecting more things like weight, vertex pane, rear. So wait, is this a question for me or for the animation and rigging module? It's for the animation and rigging module. My computer has been dead for a couple of weeks and I just got a new one set up. I lost my work in progress repo. Why? Don't keep things on your computer. That's why you can have branches. Even you don't have to use like GitHub or GitLab. You can have your own branches on your own profile, your own repositories with your own things. Don't lose things, because yeah, there are ways to not lose things. Just commit to your own repo. On a less critical note, have you seen the YouTube video on ray trace audio? Oh, yes, I have. But it's a video game, right? It's a very early video game prototype. The new sound commits make me think of it. A Blender might be uniquely positioned to implement it. Imagine putting a sound effect in 3D space and path trace the audio. Yes, so I've seen this. I don't know if you've seen it. If you ray trace audio, so the same way that a wall will block light to come through, the same with audio. So a speaker would automatically be muffled or like sound lower if there is an object in between. So yeah, pretty amazing. And I wish Blender would be not guinea pig, but almost, for these kind of features that, you know, are out there. Papers from smart people using Blender for the implementation. Next question. Yugi-Yon says, hello Pablo, I downloaded the latest alpha and using Bezier curves. I see the option active spline in the data panel is missing. Should I report the bug? No, don't report the bug because it's not missing. It has been moved into the viewport. So if you add a Bezier curve, in the end panel you have the active spline. So it's here. It's in the viewport because it actually depends on what you have selected. So it makes more sense to be here. Like when you select a vertex, for example, you have the vertex data here for the active item. Delta says, hey Pablo, I saw in Blender Studio 19. I haven't watched that yet. Is wrapped out. Are there any plans to release the game on Steam? Yes, it will be on Steam. I think there are also plans, or maybe they were discussing maybe on Google Game, GOG, maybe. But yeah, it will be on Steam and it will be free. The goal is to get people to play it, and if you want the resources, the source files, get a Blender Studio subscription and help the team to make more games. It will be interesting to have a paid version on Steam that could be used to donate. No, it will be free, so it's on your library and you can update it as you want. If you want the blend files, you can support the Blender Studio. For a specific commercial project, I wanted to use Blender. However, there are some small features missing in Blender. Set multiple keyframes for multiple strips at once. Do you know if I can pay a developer at the Blender Foundation so that features get... Oh, good. Wow, that's funny that you mentioned that, because yeah, I'm working on the survey, and one of the sections, people suggest that how can Blender make money. The store is one of them. Actually, we have some merch questions here in the live stream even. And there is another question that is, what if Blender would make like a code quest, you know, like a fundraising, but instead of being just Blender development in general, but like specific feature, like, I don't know, I want Blender like cycles map textures. You know, that's people have been, especially people from studios, been requesting that for long. All right, what if you could go and say, Blender says, okay, we need 100,000, or we need 1,000 more subscribers on the development fund to make it happen, because that will help us to have the core developers actually focus on that, and then have being able to pay for people to do bug fixes and do all the maintenance work. Would that work? Would you pay for feature specific projects? The thing is, it's not a feature, it's a project, because people have been suggesting this in the past, and Blender was very clear, everyone at Blender was very clear on, like, no, because what if the developer, because this was thought more as in a community thing, like anyone from the community could come in and pick a project and then just start working on it, and people pay for it, but then maybe the developer doesn't finish it, and what happens with the money? It's like lost, and that can be dangerous. So if Blender Foundation would propose projects that are backed up by Blender Foundation, that they would happen if enough people, would you support them? Like Blender for iPad, we need 1,000, 2,000 more subscribers, or a number on the development fund. Would that help? I see a lot of emojis. Would you? Let me know. I actually, like, after the live stream is over, I usually go and read what all the comments that I've missed. So thank you for leaving them. Next two comments. Maxime says, hi Pablo, thank you for this Blender today. You're amazing. Thank you. Regarding dynamic search for the math node precisely, what if you look for multiply, but the vector math option precisely? How would that work? Do you think being able to change from float math to vector math through a drop-down menu will at some will be an option at some point. No, I think it should just show 2 options, right? And then if you do multiply, it should show both. And when you select one, then that one will have higher weight. So it will show first the next time you look for it, because you probably like you want to use that one again. So I think it's just showing the list of all the multiply nodes would work. Because a dropdown, that's another layer of friction if you add another dropdown for something that the user already wants to do. And the last comment doesn't even have a hi. Hi, Igor Ashina. I would love any sort of update regarding multi-res design validation, since major sculpting issues depend on it. Even something as simple as we're working on it. Yes, we are. I don't know if we are working on it, because everything is part of everything, you know. Like these things I mentioned today about the attributes. There were some changes recently for Blender not to lose some data when using multi-res. I think for 4.4, and this is, I believe me when I say that developers are really aware of it. The community and even the people from the studio are really loud about it, and they know, and they're working on it. It's part of the projects. Actually, if you go to blender.org news and you look at the project to look forward to in 2025, one of these mentions in sculpting is multi-res fixing, and sculpt layers are also planned. However, multi-res have to happen first, and yeah, it's a natural next step after that. So yes, users, the developers are really aware of it. Next. Oh no, that's it. All right, I'm done. Whew, only 2 hours. Only 2 hours. How are you? Did you have a good show today? Was there anything that you really wanted to have? Quality of life are always welcome. I think we should. Well, we had a release. 4.4 was mostly about bug fixes with a few features in there, but I would love another release just for quality of life improvements. This one in particular, 4.5, looks like it, because it still looks like Blender 4, but with all these quality of life improvements, I think this will 4.5 is gonna be one that users gonna be using for a long time. The one that I'm excited about is Blender 5. Just thinking of the possibilities. So what could happen? Blender on mobile devices. All right, thanks everyone. I leave. It's just too late. 7. It's just so light outside. I hope you had a great show today, and I hope you have a great week and 2 weeks, because we're gonna see each other. When is that? 27th of. Yeah, on the 20th, not on the 20th, I have Blender UI module meeting that day. On the 27th of May, we're gonna hang out again just to see what's new in Blender 4.5, because that will be the last 2 weeks before 4.5 goes beta, the splash screen is known, and then 5.0 starts alpha. So awesome. Aguanta Rio Gallegos. That's I'm reading the chat. That's my city. Thanks everyone. I hope you had a good time. I will see you again next time, same place, same time, for another episode of Blender Today Live. All right, thank you. Grazie.